If I was sitting in church 2 years ago and a story came on, I'd be sitting there and I'd be riddled with anxiety. I'd be really afraid that the person on the screen was going to talk about pornography. I was so afraid of having authentic conversations or intimate conversations where I might have to reveal my sin to somebody else, especially my wife. Even though the secrecy, the sin that I was keeping to myself was killing me and slowly killing my marriage. I didn't know how to broach that conversation with my wife, and it ultimately leads back to I didn't trust God that confession with my wife or authenticity with my wife would be okay. Despite my best efforts to hide, 2 years ago, Brittany just point blank asked me if I'd been looking at porn still. And she knew from earlier things that have happened in our marriage that it had been a problem, but we just didn't talk about it for like 6 years. And I was at the point where it was killing me. I'd consider suicide. It was a daily thing that was taxing me. And I was finally at the point where I had nothing to lose. So it was a simple, yeah, I still am. And what I thought was going to be the hardest conversation I've ever had was the hardest conversation I've ever had, but it was also the best conversation I've ever had. And the place that it brought our marriage over the last 2 years, or God has brought our marriage over the last 2 years, has been better than I ever could have imagined. Working through the issues that came up when we had that conversation was not easy. There was a lot of distrust and brokenness that we had to work through, and that God had to work through in our lives. There was kind of a recurring theme that happened over the next few months where God brought me back to this verse where he was talking to Peter right before Peter betrays him. And he looks at Peter and he just says, hey, when you're done betraying me, turn and strengthen your brothers. God doesn't waste anything. So about 6 months after that initial conversation with my wife, I had just rolled into work. It was 6:30 in the morning. I had just poured my coffee and I got a phone call from my brother. He never calls me in the morning. He had some news to share with me and he seemed really somber. He shared with me that he had been having an affair for the last 6 months. In that moment, that verse came alive to me where I felt like God was telling me to turn and strengthen my brother. And I started laughing. And he didn't understand why I started laughing, but God doesn't waste anything. And I knew that he would use that to restore not only his relationship with Christ, but my sister-in-law's relationship with Christ. And I was just really excited for the work that he was about to do. And I was also really excited that I was going to be able to be part of that journey. So I think awesome that my wife and I's relationship is better. I think awesome that I was able to help my brother. But I think there's a bigger calling. And I think that's to be there for my brothers here at Vintage Grace. We started the Regen Pilot Group last fall. And over the last 10 months, God has really been tearing down the walls that I built up in shame and secrecy and invited in intimacy and authenticity with a group of brothers. And it's really cool having a place where I can share my fears, I can share my resentments, and I don't feel rejected. I don't feel resented myself. I just feel the love and the grace that Jesus offers me through his people, which is, I think, his design for the church in the first place. And so it's been a huge blessing to be a part of that. And I'm really looking forward to how God is going to use that to tear those walls down in the lives here at Vintage Grace.